Started this organization last January, right around the time that President Biden, on his first day in office, canceled President Trump's 1776 commission, which they turned it into a whole thing that it wasn't. I know that you find that surprising, but we thought it was a great thing and a great way to sort of recenter the conversation around education, to ensure that our children and grandchildren in school are learning an honest, true history of the country, and in a way that respects our history, our values, and our heroes. And there started to be a lot of parents around the country, I think primarily as a result of their kids being home during COVID, seeing what their kids were learning in school. There were a ton of concerns. And people started to speak up, and it was almost like they needed permission that it was okay to push back on this stuff. They knew it was wrong. And so we decided to start this organization as a way to go and frankly punch back on this type of stuff wherever it popped up all around the country. And so we've been doing everything from helping teachers to speak out against curriculum that they thought was sort of making them into activists more than teachers. We have launched initiatives in different states for legislation, working in state capitals to advance and pass, in some cases, legislation that would basically stop the promotion of curriculum that basically pits students against one another based on things like race and gender. And then we have also been, we launched what we call our 1776 Pledge. You can see it on the handout there, as a way to make sure that any person running who is going to be touching education and making decisions on that topic in some way, that we know exactly where they stand on these issues. And so we launched our 1776 Pledge, sorry about that, if you didn't hear me. With the help of somebody that we've been working closely with since the beginning, Dr. Ben Carson, who helped us launch our 1776 Pledge. Governor Kristi Noem in South Dakota was the first candidate in the country to sign on, and it's now been signed by over 500 candidates across the country, including some that will be here tonight. And so that is our way of making sure that this issue is front and center in people's minds when they go to vote, whether they're voting for school board or state representative or governor, up to the federal government. And so that's what we've been doing this last year. There's a lot to be done, but the most important thing that can happen aside from office holders is parents being involved. And we've gotten to this place where too often, I think the education bureaucracy has gotten to the point where they almost think that the students belong to them. And we're here to serve as a reminder that no, actually they belong to the parents, and those are the parents. And the parents are people that are raising. So our goal is simple. It's to try and restore honest, patriotic education that honors our history, our heroes, and our values, to make sure that the focus is on academic excellence, and to ensure that parents have a voice, the most important voice. And fortunately, that's starting to happen all across the country. And thank you for being here tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First, what I want to do is just call up Representative Jimmy Dixon, who is going to lead the invocation.
Our kind Father in heaven, we pause for a moment at the beginning of this event to give thee thanks for the many wonderful blessings that we've enjoyed in America, and to acknowledge before thee, Heavenly Father, that we're the beneficiaries of great energy and effort by our founding fathers, who pledged everything that they had for the idea of freedom. Please accept our thanks for that portion of freedom that we've enjoyed in the United States of America. Heavenly Father, we ask thee to help us recognize that now it is our turn to return and allow our posterity to be the beneficiaries of our good work in our day. Please, Heavenly Father, bless righteous men and women across this nation who have a desire to preserve freedom and liberty for future generations to be successful for their efforts. We're thankful for the freedom that we have to join together tonight. Bless us that we'll have good fellowship. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.
And next, I want to call up a group of young kids that are here to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I think they're right up front here somewhere. Come on up, guys. So to get us really started here, I want to call up our new, as of a few months ago, the spokeswoman for 1776 Action. Kathy Barnett is a wife, a mother, a veteran, author, and a commentator who appears regularly on national TV and radio. Most recently, Kathy ran an insurgent underdog campaign for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania that rocked the political world. She did so with a tremendous grassroots organization and a clear, compelling, and authentic message and story. She earned the support of over 330,000 voters across Pennsylvania, and she was the very first candidate in that race, which we're very proud to say, to sign our 1776 pledge. So with that, let me welcome up Kathy Barnett.
I'm back. I love it. How are you guys doing? Yes. Listen, let me tell you something. This is a fight. You're here. If you're here, you know this is a fight we must win. How many of you know that? How many of you know we're on the right side of this debate? Yeah. There's really nothing to debate. I'm talking to Pastor John. You're going to meet him a little bit later. Or no, I think I was talking to your lieutenant governor, right? And I was saying to him, you know, one of our problems on our side of the aisle is that we're looking for the other side to validate us. These people have lost their minds. Can you read the stuff that they're putting in front of our children, and then they come with a straight face and tell us we're overreacting? How many of y'all know what gaslighting is? Yeah, I just looked that up. That's what they're doing. They're gaslighting us. But we are on the right side of this issue. And it is now. Because think about if we lose. There's a lot of issues around. Y'all know that, right? We got a lot of issues in our country right now. But if we lose this one, we lose our children. We lose whole generations. You know, I love John Adams. I love reading about our founding fathers, and John Adams, this quote, it stuck with me, where he said, our nation, our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people. Amen. It is wholly inadequate for any other kind of people, right? Yep. Moral meaning people who know the difference between right and wrong. People who understand that there is such a thing as right and wrong. And then he says, not just moral, but religious, because where do you get your morality from? Right? Exactly. Someone pointed up to God. So he said moral and religious, and then dropping down in that letter to his wife Abigail, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, if we become a nation that forget moral and religion, that we will begin to move through the Constitution like a whale moves through the net. And are we not moving through the Constitution like a whale moves through a net right now? And it starts with being on the right side of the issue, making sure that we recognize that moral and religious people are the only kind of people who have the ability to govern themselves. And I was saying to my team a little bit earlier today, why this is so important to me. I don't know if you guys know my story at all, but I grew up on a pig farm in southern Alabama. I grew up below the bottom rung of the economic ladder. I grew up in a home with no insulation, no running water, an outhouse in the back and a well on the side. When I say poor, we were so poor we couldn't afford the other O. We were just po. But no one ever told me I was a victim. No one ever looked at me and said, Kathy, you're black, you're a woman, you're poor. Hang it up, kid. No one ever told me that. And because no one ever told me that, I went on to become the first in my family to graduate from college. I spent 10 years in the military where I was accepted into office of practice. I spent time in the financial industry, corporate America, an adjunct professor of corporate finance. I authored my first book that went #1 on Amazon. Yeah. In the middle of a pandemic, so that was impressive. Homeschooled my kids, ran for office, was about to win. I don't know if y'all saw that. Do y'all know I ran against Dr. Oz? Yeah, I'm that Kathy Barnett. And so, but only God. And I cannot help but to, and I recognize that my story only takes place here in America. We have some problems. And I spent the time, that house I talked about, my great-great-great-grandmother Rhoda grew up in that home and she was a slave. I have the blood of slaves coursing through my veins, and yet I stand here and say this is the greatest country that has ever existed. That it is the greatest country that exists because it is founded upon the greatest political document ever written. And who would have ever thought that now we would need to add to that list, that Constitution, parental rights. And yet, that's where we find them. Who would have ever thought that these people would not know that these are my children? Who would have ever thought that they would think that they love my children more than I love my children? Who would have ever thought that I would have to go and convince them that I care more about my child's health than they do? Who would have ever thought that that is what we would be in America today? And yet, newsflash, here we are. And if you walk in and try to reason with these people, they will only double down on their stupidity. But we're on the right side of history. But it is going to take people who are informed. I don't know how much time I have, but I was reading, just count me down, okay? Your Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, I was reading his report. Have y'all read his report that his office put out? You should go out there and Google it and read it. It is amazing because I don't see many lieutenant governors doing this level of work on your behalf. But one of the things they say to us, the whole gaslighting, when you say you're teaching our children inappropriate things, they're like, no, that's not happening. They're only teaching critical race theory in college, right? So he does this, it's pretty, it took a lot of paper, you can see, from my printer to print it out. But I was reading through it, and he came up with this, they call it FACTS, FACTS task force. And they processed over 500 submissions from every region of North Carolina. And so they opened up this portal to allow teachers and parents and those who are dealing with our children to submit their experiences, right? And they categorized it. The number one issue that these people had was fear of retaliation. And let me just read real quickly, because it's real. Fear of retaliation. Teachers, parents, and students across the state are afraid to report indoctrination or speak up in their communities. Out of fear, they will lose their jobs or face mistreatment when pushing back against indoctrination, bias, or a lack of freedom and freedom of speech in the classroom. Here's one example. I am 5 years away from 20 years for retirement, and that seems like forever right now. I will continue to do the best for my students because that is why I became a teacher. But something needs to change. I have too many years in to stop, but I want so much to be done. As a parent and as a grandmother, I don't want my family attending public school now. And that is really saying something because my mother was a teacher and my sister is a teacher in public school. I don't trust the values being taught, all because of the political views. It was fine in our country to talk about Biden, but not for anyone else. I never talked politics anyway, but it was very evident who was allowed to speak and who was silenced. I pray you can do something to fix what is going on so I can continue to believe in what I do. Please keep my letter private because I don't want to lose my job. I'm so afraid. So I can still get my retirement, but I couldn't just sit back and act like what is happening is okay. And it goes, it's 43 pages of testimony after testimony after testimony. And people know something has gone fundamentally wrong with our country. No one is going to gallop in and save us. It's going to come from us. Getting pissed off. Enough. To say enough. These are my children. And this is what we will and will not do. But it also starts with us holding our elected officials' feet to the fire. That's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you guys so much for coming. It's just so much going on. I am so excited because now we're going to turn to our panel, and with that, if I can get Kelly Mann to come up, Michelle, Antoine, Chad, Slaughter, I want to make sure I get their names right, John Amanchukwu. Did I say that right? I was practicing. So let me tell you about each of these people, so you guys can know these are people from your community and the things that they're doing. Kelly Mann, Kelly, raise your hand so everyone can see you. Kelly Mann is the John Locke Foundation's Grassroots Director and coordinates the organization's engagement with community groups. Kelly is a mom to 3 beautiful girls. Prior to joining Locke, Kelly founded and built a group of community members across the state to influence education legislation. Her time in education has spanned from time as a Wake County teacher to consulting higher education instructors on course content. That's Kelly. Michelle Antoine. Michelle is a mother of 8. 5 of them came up and led us in the pledge. I know, right? Look for that love. And was licensed to teach school in California and Wisconsin. A current resident of Johnston County, North Carolina, Michelle has spent the last 3 years writing and speaking as a relentless advocate in North Carolina education realm. She had worked to expose and drive out bad policy, to return our American schools to excellence, and is now running for school board. Chad Slaughter. Did I say that right? You did. Awesome. Chad, raise your hand. Everybody see Chad. Chad is a father of 3 children and has been a leader in business, his faith, and political activism for many years. Chad started as a pastor, serving for 13 years in 3 states before pioneering a church he and his wife led for 7 years. After the death of his father, Chad assumed the role of CEO of his family's small business. He earned a Master's of Science in Administration, an MBA, and a Doctorate of Christian Ministry. He also recently ran for Congress to represent the 13th Congressional District of North Carolina. And then we have Pastor John. Pastor John has been married to his wife Crystal for 14 years, and they have 3 children, among other accomplishments on the local and national level. He has served as the leader of youth and young adult ministries and has been a youth pastor for 15 years. John is a graduate of North Carolina State University, where he played football under Coach Chuck Amata, and received a master's degree from Liberty University in Christian ministry. John is a true Southern pastor, preacher, it says here, calling the next generation to repentance and action. I love it. And what's always so interesting to me, again, when you're talking to these people about your children, they look at you like you have a third eye, right? And as you can see, these are very accomplished individuals. Y'all can't see me, so I'm going to stand up because I want to be seen. Y'all can take pictures. So let me just start, Kelly. I'm going to ask each of them a variant of this question. Thank you so much. What is it? Because sometimes people like yourself, I was homeschooling my children before I decided to get into office. I've done a lot of different things. But running for office, getting involved politically as I did, that was never on my bucket list. My mic is going out. That was never on my bucket list of things to do until one day it was. I looked around and I said, what in the world is going on and what can I do, right? And that led me down this path that I now find myself on. So let me just start with you because I'm just the average individual, right? What was it for you, Kelly, that caused you to say, I need to do more?
I was, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was in the corporate world, working mom before COVID and school closures, starting in March 2020, and really did not have any political inclinations either way. I grew up hearing my father spout Fox News and my mom spout MSNBC, so I take a little bit from each of them. And
You were confused.
So yeah, I was confused. I didn't have a strong pull either way, but schools closed in March. I had to focus on supporting them while they were out of school, and as things unraveled, I became more engaged in watching the school board meetings, and as time progressed, it became more and more evident to me that something else was going on, and that it was not, that the decisions that were being made were not necessarily being made driven by health issues, but some other underlying issue, and I was determined to figure out what was going on. By midsummer, it became apparent to me that the schools were not going to reopen, and so I decided to support my children, that I needed to leave my corporate job. And in August is when I really got pulled, and the light bulb moment of politics kind of went off in my head. I went to Inlow High School, which is the school where I was to pick up the Chromebooks for my daughters to support them in remote learning. The fact that we had to have Chromebooks for all the students was a huge telling point as well, because why would the county buy Chromebooks if they had any intention of opening the schools for our children? So I go and stand in line, step on the little dot 6 feet away from people outside, and it was as if you made eye contact with somebody. You were going to, COVID was going to get them. No one spoke to anybody. No one made eye contact. It was like an episode of The Walking Dead. We go in, and we have this huge gymnasium, and they had a desk in each of the 4 corners. That's how far away we needed to be from one another to pick up these boxes of our Chromebooks. The size of this room in each corner. So when I walk out of the building, follow all the little directional signs, I walk out of the building, and there's this massive table at the exit, and it is full of candidate material for Democrats and for the North Carolina Association of Educators. How were they using the time for us to pick up our Chromebooks for our children as an opportunity to campaign? And I left the building, and I went to I deactivated my Facebook account because of all the toxic conversations that were going on around all of the mandates. I went out to my car, and I started a Facebook group, Wake County Families and Teachers to Safely Reopen Schools. And
that's how you guys started?
And I went and picked up a poster board and wrote the name of my group and put it all around that building so every parent can pick up their Chromebook.
And then that's what of creating a community member of pulling other community members all across the state.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
and we collaborated together, and then in February of 2021, I worked with the legislators to get our schools reopened and pass that bill.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm always curious. If you don't want to answer this question, you don't have to. But were any of you Democrats prior to 2020? No. Okay. I'm saying I always had good sense. You always on the right side. I'm sorry.
I have voted Democrat before all of
I mean, yes. I mean, as a black person, I will admit. I mean, there's a 92% chance we will be Democrats. And growing up in Alabama, you never had that issue. Growing up in Alabama, I'm black. You just vote Democrat, right? And it wasn't until I was a junior in college that I began to see the light and change. But I'm always curious about that. On the campaign trail, I saw a lot of people that 2020 was the beginning of an awakening. Let me go to you. How did you get involved, Michelle?
I got involved a little bit earlier before COVID. So in 2018, I saw deep cracks inside our education system. As a mom of 8, I was seeing kids in elementary, middle, and high school, and I saw that the fundamentals of education were missing. We hadn't had curriculum for 10 years. Teachers were allowed to make up whatever they wanted. And I saw that Learning for Justice, which is this far left program, was being instituted in our elementary schools. And it was the final day in 2019 before the closure for running for school board was happening. And I was on my way to buy Christmas presents. I had someone to watch some of my kids so I could go do that. And I called my husband and I said, I'm turning around and I'm going to go put my name in for school board. And I'm not going to win. I'm not going to buy a sign. I'm going to spend my money and give it to the teachers who don't have resources, but I'm going to make people aware of what's happening. And in 2020, it is so prophetic. I lost that primary as I anticipated doing, but I started an advocacy group and I started researching and letting the people of Johnston County know exactly what was happening inside their schools. So we had developed an Office of Equity, which so many of us know about, right? Well, they had developed modules that called Johnston County white people white supremacists. And they just had, it was just loaded full of stuff. And so I started writing articles with the local paper. And I saw the word panorama on Twitter feeds, and I looked that up, so I was probably one of the first in the country to expose exactly what panorama was, and that got picked up in the national news. So it was just this progress, this movement, this incremental movement of a mother who was fed up with public schools going woke and not teaching my kids what I sent them to do, getting out of their education lane and deciding what values my kids needed to come home with. So that's kind of how it started.
Yes, I love it. I call it doing the next right thing, right? Sometimes you don't have the plan from here to the end of the goal, right? You don't have, A through Z mapped out. But from A to B, right? I'm going to take that step. And then when I get to B, I'm going to look around and I'm going to take the next step, right? Again, I want you to, I'm asking this question because I want all of you, and if there's anyone in the audience who think, oh, I'm a nobody, I can't do this, no one's going to listen to me, these are your children. These are your grandchildren. You have 1776 action here. Figure out who you need to be listening to. Figure out what you need to do to go to the next level, or come and support those who are doing the hard work of putting themselves out there for the rest of us, right? So, Chad, why this issue? What is so important about this issue?
Well, the first day that my kids began attending public schools was the day that I had to get involved, because I never agreed to co-parent my children with a government school. I never made I never gave them my permission, and so my wife and I have always been very, very involved, because these are our children. God entrusted them to us. They're our responsibility. Education is our responsibility. I'm happy to have the partnership with a public school, but that responsibility lies with me. And as thankful as I am that we have some great school board candidates and some amazing folks running at the state and the national level who are committed to doing the types of things for our children that we're talking about. We're here to rally tonight. The truth is, as I've walked through this process, and we've had to now address our school board on a number of occasions, the one thing that I've learned is it doesn't matter how many folks we elect, it doesn't matter how many policies, even at the school board level, that are enacted, moms and dads still have to be involved. My son, and this was, I guess, a one awakening for us. This was pre-pandemic. My 7th grade son was involved, and they were teaching a lesson on Frederick Douglass. And my son sent me and I actually have them on my phone, 2 screenshots of a couple pictures. They had shown them a video of pre-1776. It was an animated retelling of pre-1776 slave trade in the Americas. It was obviously very painful to watch, knowing all the tragic treatment of individuals in the history of our country. Is very painful to watch. But it's important that we understand, the history of our country, obviously, the good and the bad. The problem in this video, there's one scene where they depict 4 white plantation owners literally having chains and a noose around the neck of a slave, and they're abusing the slave. The video freezes, and the very next frame, those plantation owners transform into 4 modern-day police officers, white police officers. And that slave transforms into a modern-day young teenager. And again, to the extent, and wherever that situation has occurred, it is tragic, but that is, in my view, it was intellectually dishonest at best, and blatant indoctrination at worst.
Amen.
And we went in and sat down, and here was the revelation moment. We sat down with the principal, and this is what's so important. If all of us will get involved, if we will sit down with our children's teachers and administrators, if we will all stay involved, know what's being taught, and take the time out of our busy schedules to go in and have those meetings, we can change the world. We can make a difference. We sat down with the principal, the teacher, the department head, and my first question was, where did you get this video? Well, I was told this video is not part of curriculum. It wasn't an assigned video. It was part of a module, happens to be called Nearpod, that is still being used in Wake County by the Wake County Public Schools. It's a curated system for videos. And I said, so you chose the video? Yes, we chose it. In that moment, I realized these teachers, to the extent that they have any agenda that they want to foist upon our children, they have autonomy to do so. I've spoken at the school board on issues of medical privacy and medical freedom because these folks have autonomy when we don't stay involved. I fought against pornographic material, not only just in my daughter's library, but also assignments. I just was again in our principal's office 2 weeks ago because, again, now, not just in the library, but an assignment to my daughter of a book that's absolutely pornographic, and I've had enough of it.
You are a thorn in their side.
I intend to be. You got to almost through that.
You are and that is what it takes, right? They want you to shut up, line up, and go somewhere and sit down. And if you do that, then whose fault is it? You can't point it at them. You got to look in the mirror. Again, whose children are these? That's not a hard question. Whose children are these? Ours. Say it louder. Ours. Say it like you mean it. Ours. These are your children. These are our children, right? And I never wrote down anywhere, signed any contract that said you can co-parent with me, right? My children have a father and a mother, and we have committed our lives to bringing up these children, right? We send our kids to school to learn what? Reading, writing, arithmetic, throw in some civics, real civics, not that foolish civics, throw in some social studies, and send my baby back to me. But you were saying earlier, Kelly, that about the 50%, the fact that 50% of your children here can't
The
read.
academic proficiencies in Wake County have absolutely plummeted. They were on a downward trajectory before COVID, but they certainly experienced a huge setback.
So how about they get their first job right before they come over here trying to take up my job? How about that? How about that? video, and you walked in. First of all, you corrected her on how she pronounced her name. Now, according to them, that would be some kind of microaggression, right? If you mispronounce someone's last name. But for them, it was like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. But then you go on to say, let me quote a Bible passage to you. You want to quote that Bible passage and talk to us about how you got in this and why this is your fight?
Yes, so my name is John Kanayo Chukwu Amen Chukwu. Kanayo Chukwu means I will keep trusting and pleading in God. Amen Chukwu means I know God, and I'm proud to be able to say that I gave my life to Christ at the age of 19. The scripture, Luke 17:2, the Bible says it's better for a man to have a millstone tied around his neck and to be cast into the sea than for us to do harm to a child. And our American education system, in particular Wake County, has gone woke, and we have done irreparable damage towards our children for far too long. I used to serve as an executive director over a private Christian school. The church that I've attended for the past 20 years, we've been a cause-driven church, a church that believes in having a biblical worldview and engaging the culture and leaving the four walls of the church and going out and making sure that the government does not place upon us unnecessary overreach. And we have fought against that for a number of years. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that there comes a time when silence becomes betrayal. And we have betrayed our children for far too long. I am launching a movement in this nation called Erase. Erase is the movement that loves all life, race, and color, and sees all mankind, born and unborn, as one blood and equally valuable. For far too long, pastors have said, let's focus on the four walls of the church, and let's allow the government to do what the government does, and let's focus on our church, and we'll allow everything outside to figure itself out. But we found out in 2020 what happens when the government doesn't simply come to the doorsteps of the church, but to the pulpit of the church, and put places sanctions and mandates upon the church. I also believe that pastors need to leave the pulpit and go down to the local school board meetings and speak up. I also want to speak to fathers who are listening tonight. We need you in the fight. We need your voice. Dad, please do not abdicate your responsibility in being involved in your child's future and education. The school boards all around this nation, even in this state, they need to hear from you. All of the intentional indoctrination that's taking place in the public school system, whether it's gender theory or queer theory or critical race theory or hegemonic power or intersectionality, all of these woke terms that it takes a thesaurus to understand, we need to make sure that we are engaging the culture and reminding our school boards and reminding our superintendents that we want education only. We don't want indoctrination, and we don't want our children to be taught things that parents should teach them at home when they're ready to have those conversations. So I went down to the Wake County School Board meeting. And, in Wake County, there are 160,000 students in Wake County, the largest school district in the state. In the early 2000s, we had a 2 to 3 year wait list for teachers. But today, we're 400 teachers short. You want to know why? Because the teachers are saying, I have to leave this office, this job, this career, because we've drifted far away from education and the focus is on social issues. And in the Wake County Public School System, they spent $1 million last year on a diversity, equity, and inclusion office. Well, at the same time, the people that they say that they're here to help, 78% of black students grades 3rd through 8th grade aren't doing math on grade level. And nearly 66% of them can't read on the proper grade level, grades 3rd through 8th grade. But we're throwing money at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've made a god and a false idol out of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it needs God.
If I was making a batch of brownies and I added just a teaspoon of poop, but now you know it's a big batch, and I just added a little bit of poop, would that be okay? Yeah. How many squares of that brownie would you eat? And yet, Huffington Post wrote an article about how we're just overreacting. That we're taking these books and we're just cherry picking some of the most outlandish examples. Have y'all seen some of the images? Yes. How many of y'all have seen the images? Because you don't really know what we're talking about and why you should be pissed off right now unless you've seen the images. It leaves nothing to the imagination for your little 4-year-old, for your 4th grader. They're grooming our children, right? So unless you've seen it, you don't know. And I'm going to challenge you to go see it. Okay? So you understand. And if it's too graphic for you, imagine what your baby is looking at, right? But this article goes on to say, well, they took one book and said, well, they're just cherry picking that one thing. If that was true, just that one thing, how much poop would be appropriate for the next batch of brownies you eat? A little bit, not that much, right? That's what it's doing to our children. Let me just rapid fire. I know y'all can talk. Rapid fire. What do you want them to know? Give them a charge, a mandate, something that they can get up and go do now.
I want everybody to engage. I want you to show up at school board meetings, at government meetings. I want you to send letters to your elected officials and hold them accountable. I want you to go vote. I think we have a huge opportunity, particularly in Wake County, to make a big change in our schools next to now in early
5 days from now, you're going to be making you're going to send a message. Do you want more of this foolishness in your schools, or do you want people who are going to listen to you and fight for you, right? Red all the way down. I don't care who's going to carry a bomb with you. I don't care what they say.
I want to add one more thing, go fast. And support these people. Support them. Because they're putting themselves out. You all are fighting. You all are fighting for your children. And it's not always an easy road. Fight for them.
Right. We have, in North Carolina, we have 277 open school board seats. That is a third of the seats on school boards. We can change the trajectory of public schools. November 8th, go in, pull that ballot for the most conservative, the most Republican, the best candidate that will stand up and be bold and admit that American school children should know that America is the most exceptional country in the world.
Yes, and every mom and dad, every grandma and grandpa, I want you to go home and I want you to carve out some extra time in your schedule. Sit down with your grandchildren, sit down with your children and say, I want to know exactly what you're being taught. Let's talk. And don't just do it today, do it again tomorrow, and then the next day, and next week. And when you come across something that you never would have wanted your children to encounter or learn, you take that calendar, you call up the school, and you say, no, I want a sit-down meeting, not just with the school board, in 3 minutes to speak in front of a podium, which is powerful and important. But you sit down in that principal's office like my wife and I have for hours at a time. Build a relationship with the principal. Build a relationship with the teacher. Craft and forge those relationships so that you can have influence. We can only influence where we have a relationship. Take the time and make it happen.
I love it. I always say, put a smile on. Now go back, right? We don't have to be angry. I know I'm right on this issue. Come on, just put a smile on and go to work, right? Pastor John.
Well, 15 million Christians are unregistered to vote in the U.S. So number one, get registered to vote and go vote. And vote biblical values. Also, in order for Hitler to control the nation, he worked his way into the education arena so that he could rewrite the principles and the values in Germany. make sure you watch what's going on. But you need to watch, pray, and vote.
Amen. Woohoo! Okay. So I often say to people, how many of you want change?
Yep.
And I often say to people, you know, we're always looking for who's going to come and save us, who's going to come and save us, who's going to, you know, fix this, who's going to get in and do this. I earnestly believe you are the who you've been waiting for.
That's right.
Get engaged. It's not rocket science. Yes, thank you so much. But once you do that, I mean, my story in this race, I mean, my two primary opponents, they spent $60 million in that primary. I spent less than $2. I had 3 full-time people and a whole lot of volunteers. And we lost because they lied, dragged me all across the nation, but we lost by 5 points. Over 330,000, Pennsylvania, almost a third, right? That was not supposed to happen. Now, there's some things we will do different next time if we should ever decide to run again. But it gives me so much hope because I showed the nation that grassroots works. We have power. We have to harness it. We have to get smart about it. And then we have to hold our people accountable once they get in office. Hold their feet to the fire. That's the power of grassroots. Become a thorn in the Republicans you elect side, right? And force them to listen. With that, I think the wonderful privilege, I just met her a few moments ago. I think we're going to become fast friends. Where is she? Sandy Smith. There she is. Come on up here. I'm always going to ask both times to come up. I'm going to introduce both of them. Sandy Smith is a proud mother, business executive, entrepreneur, and real estate investor currently running to represent the 1st Congressional District in Congress. Who's in here from the 1st Congressional District? Okay, that's all. Okay, guys. Go back and tell others. In the 1st Congressional District in Congress, throughout her career, Sandy has created jobs, grown industries, and helped farmers all across eastern North Carolina. She is a proud military mother. Her oldest child honorably served in the Marine Corps, continuing a family tradition of service in America's Armed Forces. That is Sandy Smith. She'll be speaking. Next to her, I'm sure you guys know him, Bo Hines. He is the Republican nominee for North Carolina's 13th Congressional District. Any 13th Congressional District here? All right, go tell others. And proud endorsee of Donald Trump. Congratulations. Bo played football for North Carolina State University, where he was named as an All-American his freshman season and later transferred to Yale. Impressive. And played for the Bulldogs. He has worked for a significant number of elected officials. Bo has traveled over 75,000 miles throughout the state of North Carolina and is bid for Congress, campaigning to create an attractive environment for job creators, to create jobs, good-paying jobs, defending our individual liberties and freedoms from a tyrannical bureaucracy, returning educational decision-making power to parents, fighting to secure our borders, and protecting the unborn. Please give it up for Sandy Smith.
Isn't she fantastic? Yeah. The panel is just awesome. I'm going to tell you, how many mama and papa bears are out here? How many are angry about what they're doing to our kids? I need to hear you. I see a lot of hands, so let's hear you. Let's send a firm message that you, as targeting our children. They're trying to sexualize our children at every opportunity they get. They have this pornographic material in our libraries. A matter of fact, I talked to some folks earlier that made a report that they had this stuff in the school. Instead of removing it from the school, they just shifted it somewhere else. I have some other folks from my district who went to the school board to talk about and read some of the passages from these disgusting, horrific, sexualizing books. And the school board would not let them speak and read from those books because it was not appropriate. If it is not appropriate for us to read in a school board meeting, it's definitely not appropriate for us to read in the classroom. We now have these sexual rumors that are targeting children and encouraging these drag queen story hours. It's disgusting. What do these drag queens want with our children? I'll tell you what it is. They want to desensitize us and make sure that they think sex is all normal. So when we were kids, do you remember we were told when something happens, you say something. Well, now they're trying to desensitize children so they don't say something. Our parents are under so much stress right now. We have out of control inflation. We've got food we can't find. Gas is extremely expensive. And now they cannot send their child to school and know that they're going to get a basic education and know how to read, write, and do basic math when they graduate from high school. It is time we should make a change, and that is why it is so imperative that everyone get out and vote November 8th. We, the people, can make it happen. We are the only ones that can change and help our children and save our country. So if you would, please, if you're in the 1st District, vote for me, Sandy Smith. I have 19 counties. Wayne County used to be in my district, and I know I have a lot of love in the audience here, and I love you guys. And I'm very hopeful that I'm going to be working with Mr. Bo Hines, so make sure you get out and vote for Bo Hines as well. So thank you so much. I'm Sandy Smith. My website is sandysmithnc.com. God bless you. God bless America. And God bless the great state of North Carolina.
You guys have heard in this room, we have a local congressional race going on, which includes much of Wayne County, and that is for the 13th district, which I am running for. And it's very good to be here in Wayne County tonight. It's an absolute pleasure to see so many welcoming faces of parents and grandparents and those that care about their children. And because I'm really in Wayne County, we'll talk about district-specific things about education, talk a little bit about the race, but guys, I want to make a point here that when we send resources to schools, we need to make sure that money is going directly to the student. Okay, directly to the student's education. We need to make sure it's not going to administrators. We need to make sure it's not going to bureaucrats that want to indoctrinate your kids, want to push things like CRT, want to push sexual material. That's nonsense. We need to get back to common sense in this country. Right? That's what we need. But I'll tell you, the second thing I want to talk about is that our rural communities are oftentimes left behind because we have all these school choice options, which I'm a huge proponent of. I'm a huge proponent of school choice, school freedom, everything of that nature. But in our rural communities, we don't have enough children to pop up different options all across these rural areas. We need to make sure our rural schools are taken care of, have every resource that they need to properly educate our kids, and oftentimes they don't. And we need to make sure that every single resource we get them goes directly to our children, whether it be through apprenticeship programs, whether it be through vocational training. These are things that are just common sense things we have to adopt in our rural areas. And I'll also say this, the third thing is, with our military communities here, especially in Wayne County, we need to make sure the children of our great military men and women have the resources they need in schools, especially in overflow counties, and are taken care of, because that's a problem that we have, especially in Wayne County here. But these are all things that we can take direct action on when we take back this country on November 8th. I promise you, we're going to take back this country on November 8th. With folks like you that are going to step up and participate in the political sphere, you're saying enough is enough. 8.3% inflation, which is the equivalent of 1 month's salary for the American people. Rampant illegal immigration, to the tune of 5 million illegal migrants over the course of the Biden administration. Fentanyl flowing into our communities, ravaging our rural areas. Right? The left attempting to strip our rights away from us every single day. I know for a fact, this community, North Carolina's 13th district, the United States of America, is going to stand up and say, enough is enough. We're taking back this country. God bless you guys. God bless you. Let's get out and vote in the road.
All right, thank you, Sandy Smith and Bo Hines. Now I'm going to call up Michael Watley. Motley, who is the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party.
Sir? You know, Adam, I want to thank you and Kathy for this great event and for all the work that you're doing around the country to fight for our kids and to fight for our schools. This is absolutely critical. You know, when we look at this election cycle, I always chuckle. Every year somebody stands up at a podium like this, on a stage like this, with a crowd like this, and says, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Look, I'm not going to say that. 2016 was pretty darn important. But I will tell you this. This is a critical election cycle. We have got to get guardrails around the governor's mansion. We have got to get guardrails around the White House. We got to get guardrails around our freedom and our liberty and protections for our families. We'll worry about the White House and the governor's mansion in a couple of years, but right now, we need to win, and we need to win here in North Carolina. We are going to be able, opportunity-wise, to get supermajorities in the State House and the State Senate. We're going to win a majority on the North Carolina Supreme Court. And when we have those supermajorities, and we win that court, we're going to tell Governor Cooper, go on back to the bunker in the basement of the governor's mansion. Going back 2 years, we got it. When it comes to Congress, right now in North Carolina, we have 8 Republican members. We're going to send all 8 of those members back. We're going to send Bo Hines back. We're going to put Sandy Smith in that 1st district to be the first Republican in 100 years. We in North Carolina are going to be the tip of the spear in sending Nancy Pelosi back to San Francisco. Everybody knows about the Senate. It's 50-50. Kamala Harris is breaking the tie. We've got a great opportunity to pick up a seat down in Georgia. We got a great opportunity out in Nevada. We may have an opportunity in Arizona, maybe New Hampshire. But it's going to be really hard to hold that seat up in Wisconsin. It's going to be really hard to hold that seat in Ohio. And even after the debate, it's still going to be hard for us to hold that seat in Pennsylvania. Although it's a little easier these days. It is very likely that the majority of the Senate, control of the Senate, is going to come down right here to North Carolina. Thank God Ted Budd is our nominee. Ted Budd is a man of faith. Ted Budd is going to be tough on China and Russia. He is going to defend our southern border. He is going to fight every day for the sanctity of life. He's going to fight every day for the Second Amendment. And by God, he is going to fight every single day for you and your families and families just like yours all across North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce your next Senator, Ted Budd.
Doing tonight? Right. See that picture up there? And people say, you lost a little weight. Tell you what it is, folks. It's inflation. I can't afford the groceries that I used to afford. I don't know about you all. My goodness. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about education tonight. First of all, thank you all for having me here. This is great. I think some folks here want to save our schools. How about you all? Yeah. You know, when I'm traveling around all 100 counties, including right here in Wayne County, I'm hearing 3 things that seem to repeat themselves. People are talking about inflation, and they're talking about crime, and they're talking about education, because parents are telling me, I know we got school board candidates right here, they tell me they want to have a say in their kids' education. Do you all believe that? I think by showing up, you all actually believe that. I want to start with just a few facts. And first of all, the United States of America is not a racist country. You know, in America, we judge our fellow citizens by their own merits and not by the color of their skin. And in America, we strive for equality of opportunity for all. Now, until recently, these statements They were not controversial. Now, you would think that teaching our children about the fundamental goodness of our land and our country, it wouldn't be that controversial, but for the left, it really is. They have a radically different view of our country, and it's epitomized by something called the 1619 Project. And the project is a series of writings that try to reframe U.S. history and put slavery at the center of our national narrative. Think about that. The left doesn't want to teach our children about the history of men who banded together to shrug off the tyranny of a king and establish for the first time a government of laws, not a government of men. A government that led to the end of slavery, to the establishment of equal rights for every citizen. The radical left wants us to ignore all that and focus on everything that America got wrong. To be blunt, they want to teach our kids that our country is flawed, it's hopeless, and it's evil. The worst news of all is that the 1619 Project has been adopted in classrooms in all 50 states, including right here in North Carolina. And I'll tell you why this is so important to the extreme left. Because they view the founding of our country as an obstacle to their pursuit of political power. They think that if they can re-educate this next generation, and if they can talk other Americans into being ashamed of our country, then that they can fundamentally transform us into a land of government dependency and socialism. You know, the Trump administration, they fought against the left's radical agenda by developing the 1776 Commission. And it brought together scholars and historians to study and understand the principles of the founding. This commission is the key to establishing a base curriculum for a patriotic education for the 21st century. Put simply, we have to teach our next generation to love our country and not to hate it. You know, on his very first day in office, Joe Biden, he canceled that commission. I mean, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. Would it surprise you that he canceled this commission that loves our country and makes us stronger? So here's what that move told us. It exposed the dirty little secret of his administration. Because they want to silence millions of Americans because they want us demoralized. They want us to stand aside while they indoctrinate this next generation to look at our flag with shame instead of with pride. But we're not going to let that happen, are we? I think that's why you showed up tonight. So I want everyone here to leave this conference and this meeting invigorated. And I want you all to remember that we're the happy warriors. We're the people who fight for our country because we love it. You know, Teddy Roosevelt famously said, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So I want each and every one of you all to stay in the arena, to strive valiantly, and to dare greatly. Our nation is special, friends, and our nation is blessed by God. And we embody the ideals of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and that we are all endowed by our Creator with equal rights that no man or government can ever take away. And friends, that is worth fighting for.
That's right.
You know, with the help of people in this room and by great leaders being in the arena, I believe that we can save our country yet again. You know, one of those leaders, he's here tonight. There's a lot of leaders here tonight, but one of those leaders, he's a rock star. I haven't heard him sing. Yes, I have actually heard him sing. But he's a rock star for our values and for our state. And we can't wait to watch him achieve even more things for our state. He's my friend, and he is our Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robbins.
Everybody can hear me? Thumbs up? Fantastic. All right, very first thing we're going to do is always going to thank our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Giving us our life and health and our strength and helping us to navigate these terrible political waters that we find ourselves in. We want to give him thanks first and foremost. Second thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank all the members of the press that are in here tonight. You know who the press is? The press are the people that are more concerned about what's going on my Facebook page than they are about trying to find out who put this pornography in our schools. It was so bad they couldn't show it on their television screens, but it's all right, it's fit for the consumption of our children's eyes. So I think instead of trying to dig up what everybody said 10 years ago or find out what's going on somebody's Facebook page with some joke or something, they need to be out trying to find out who's responsible for putting this garbage in front of our children. Hypocritical smoke blowers that they are. Yeah, I said it. You can write that down. Hypocritical smoke blowers. Yeah. So, here we are. What are we doing here tonight? Why are we here? We are here because we're fighting for our children. We're fighting for our children. You know, when I first decided to run for office, one of the reasons why I did it was because of some of the stuff that I saw going on in our public schools. I saw it when my children were in school. And steadily I saw it ramping up more and more as time went on. And I thought that maybe it was just in a few places. Maybe it was just my children's school. Maybe it was just my friends. Maybe it was just other places. But then I started to see that this is a systemic problem across the board, across the state, across the nation. And I couldn't take it anymore, and I had to start speaking out against it. So when we decided to run for office, one of the things that we ran on was the premise of ending indoctrination in our schools. And when we decided to say that publicly, we were criticized. We were made fun of. We were told that indoctrination didn't exist in our schools. Oh, these things are not happening. This is just something you're just making up. This is just some made-up issue that you're making up to try to frighten parents and try to stifle education because you hate schools and you hate teachers and you hate the teachers union. It's not a real issue. So then we get into office and we actually put together a task force to get the evidence that they said did not exist. And guess what we got? Evidence. We got the evidence they said that did not exist. We presented it to them on the porch of our office. We showed them just a few of the pictures. They were so bad that they actually had to blur the images out on television. Again, not fit to present to their viewers, but fit to present to your children in the classroom and in our libraries. So then we get the evidence, and then what did they say? One of the senators there in Raleigh said that it's a Fox News-driven issue. We laid out all these hundreds, thousands of pieces of evidence to prove that this is going on in our schools. And what happens? He flippantly says, oh, it's a Fox News-driven issue. It is not a Fox News-driven issue. Fox News may be reporting about it, but from what I saw on television the other day, CNN is now reporting on it also. Did you see the dismal report that our schools got in this country after this COVID debacle? Why do you think that is happening? It's because education in this state, in this nation, has lost its way. It's no longer about teaching our children what they need to succeed inside the classroom and, more importantly, outside the classroom. It is now about social engineering. It's now about them trying to cram an agenda down the throats of your children for the purposes of manipulating their minds. It's no longer about educating. It's no longer about teaching them how to read and write and do mathematics. It's no longer about teaching them how to set their lives up for success in great careers. It's all about the agenda now. And they're pushing that agenda heavy. And they're pushing it hard. So hard that when parents push back at school board meetings across the nation, the federal government had the unmitigated gall to call them domestic terrorists because they're standing up for their children. Now, mind you, they have yet to label Antifa domestic terrorists. They have yet to label BLM domestic terrorists, although we saw them commit acts of terror all across this nation 2 years ago. But yet still, soccer moms who want better for their children and dads who want better for their children are domestic terrorists. I'm telling you guys, if there was a cause that we need to stand up for, if there's something that we need to put our foot down and say, no more, it is this issue. We have got to stand tall for our children. And we've got to be unafraid to do it against anyone. Anyone. I don't care whether or not it's the governor. I don't care if it's the president. I don't care if it's the press. We have to stand tall for our children and say, today is the day that this stops. Because we're going to see to it that it stops. There are a lot of things we can argue about. We can argue about how much we should focus on reading, writing, and mathematics in elementary school. We can sit down and we can talk about that. Reasonable people can have that debate. We can sit down and we can talk about how much we should focus on four-year universities versus community colleges and trades. Reasonable people can talk about this, talk about that. But here's something that doesn't need to be a conversation. Nobody needs to be telling me why there should be pornography in our schools. That's right. Nobody should be trying to tell me that there should be materials in our schools that you cannot present to grown-ups at the school board meeting. And there have been several times when parents have gone into school board meetings and tried to read some of the materials their children have brought home, and they have been shut down because they said it was pornographic, that it could not speak those words in those halls. And you think about that, you think about what is going on. Why is someone trying to present this to our children? Again, folks, it is about social engineering. And that's the reason why education has lost its way. In the state of North Carolina, we spend half of our state budget on education. And it stands right now, our children cannot read on the grade level. We're failing. We're failing our children, and ultimately, we are failing our state and our nation because our children are our future. And if we're not teaching them the skills that they need to be able to operate in this constitutional republic, how many of y'all know this is a constitutional republic and not a democracy? Thank you. That's not a whole group of people here knows that apparently Joe Biden does not know. Right. What does he know? Until we start teaching our children that capitalism is far more desirable than socialism. I dare to think any nation that has been raised out of this condition has been better through socialism. Look at all the nations that have been raised up, including this one, because of capitalism. The engine that runs this machine, the economic engine that runs this machine. We need to be teaching our children how it operates, and we are not. We're not teaching our children how this nation was founded anymore, about their founding fathers, about how it survived the Civil War, about how it fought its world wars. We're not teaching our children about the goodness of this country, and as such, our children are beginning to despise this place. I've said this once, I've said it 100 times. You never need to tell the children to love the country. The only thing you need to teach them is how to be successful in it, and they will come to love it automatically. So, saying to all of you all, I have a small part of the answer. I'm just a small part of the answer. The next senator from North Carolina, Mr. Ted Bud, is a small part of the answer. Sandy Smith is a small part of the answer. A big part of the answer is you. Whether or not you will stay engaged. Whether or not you will not only hold those on the other side accountable, but you'll hold those on your side of the aisle accountable as well. You will hold me accountable. You'll hold Sandy accountable. You'll hold Ted accountable. You'll hold those that you will send off to the school board on November 8th. You will hold those folks accountable for what they do. Because ultimately when they go into those seats, they are not going into those seats to serve themselves. We are not here to serve ourselves. We are here to serve you and do your will. We're not doing it. You need to make the steps. Take the steps. Replace us with someone who is. But I can tell you this right now. I stepped into this role to protect our children and fight for our children and to fight for you, quite frankly. And I vow to you, I can't tell you everything. I can't stand up here and tell you I can get everything done. I can't stand up here and tell you I can fix everything. But I can tell you this. I'm always going to be on your side. And I'm always going to stand with you. And I'm always going to stand for you. Because it's high time in this state and this nation that politicians start standing up for what's right and standing up for the people who know what's right and standing on it no matter what anyone else says. And by the press is over. Look, guys, I'm going to go ahead and tell you like this. I came from the dirt. Literally. Grew up in a little house on Logan Street in Greensboro, dirt front yard. No air conditioning, no real heat. I think we had a wood stove run by oil. Hardly enough to eat, no car, no phone, nothing. Nothing. I had nothing in my life. None of these extras that I have now, but guess what I did have? I had love in my house. The love of my mother, the love of my father, the love of my brothers and sisters, and I had the love of God with me. And he was right there with me. These folks are thinking they're going to threaten me, they're going to take away my position, they're going to make you so you can't be governor, we're going to demonize you and this, and we're going to bring it on. Bring it on. Because I know above all, I am fighting a righteous fight. I'm fighting a fight for our children and for what is right. Because there is no question that what is being done to our children in these schools is not right. It's time for parents to stand up. It's time for community members to stand up. And doggone it, it's time for politicians to stop being cowardly and start standing with them. I'll say if anybody wants to stand in our way, you bring it on. You bring it on because we're fighting for our children. Amen. By God, we're going to make sure it gets done right. Now I'll repeat a phrase that I said back in 2018. We're going to protect our kids, and we're going to get our schools right. We're going to do it come hell or high water. Amen. Stand with me. Let's make this thing happen. God bless you all, and God bless you. Great day.
For joining us tonight. Tuesday, I'm suggesting vote.
Yes, mic drop. Hit that like button, guys. Come on, hit that like button. All right, guys, I'm going to hand out some cards real quick. Here's my card. I'm live streaming tonight.
Well, thank you very much for that.
No. Here's my card. I'm live streaming tonight.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I do a lot of stuff. So a lot of videos up there. I'm live streaming tonight. If you guys want to watch it, I do a lot of stuff in North Carolina, too. Yep. Thank you. Yep. Live streaming tonight. Got a lot of stuff North Carolina wise too. Yep. I'm live streaming tonight if you want to watch it. I do a lot of stuff in North Carolina. I got people in Sanford the other day. So, yep. Please subscribe. Thank you. I do a lot of stuff in North Carolina. That's my YouTube, my live stream tonight. Yes, sir. Here's my card. I'm live streaming. If you guys want to watch it later. I do a lot of stuff in North Carolina. There's a video from last week from Sanford with the drag people. That's all on there. Here you go. I do a lot of live streaming in North Carolina.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Work that crowd. I do a lot of live streaming in North Carolina. I got that stuff from Sanford last week. Drag people. That's on there too. So Buffaloman11 on YouTube. Got live streaming live, and I got a lot of stuff in North Carolina.
Okay.
Watch it. Subscribe. Thank you. I'm trying, Matt.
Have you?
Oh, here's the fake news over here. Let's go see what they got to say. You go check out my YouTube. I live streamed this tonight. I got a lot of good stuff on there. I got the thing from Stanford last week.
Yeah, we were down there.
Oh, you was? You see me?
Right.
Oh, okay.
We watched you the
There
whole
you go.
time.
Okay.
And then we
since
showed
Sunday.
up.
I know.
Remember us showing up with the trailer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They
Yep.
took your live stream down.
They did. I got it back up. It was for a song, which had never happened, but they found something. Yeah, they found something to try to do it. Exactly. But I always have copyrights because there's always music playing, but this time they actually took it away. I'm like,
That's crazy.
so, yep.
It's back up now, though.
Oh, yeah. And my rumble never went down, but. Buffalo man working. Check out my YouTube. I live stream tonight, and I also do a lot of stuff. I got to drag people last week. I was there live. So, yep, thank you. Awesome, guys. All right. Yeah, just a second.
Oh. I don't understand.
So somebody, kids out of Sanford that were inside Hugger Mother. You want to report something? The kids that were inside Hugger Mother down in Sanford.
Yep.
Instead of the white supremacists outside, the kids and the damn queers inside of it. Talk about the Sanford.
Yeah, we were all there.
Be real about it.
WRAL lied about all.
They lied. There were little kids in there.
There was
We
kids
had
inside
videos.
that damn
Y'all
place.
were racist
15
and
of them.
liars.
No, it wasn't him. It was the other
It
guy.
wasn't him. He works for the company.
Yeah.
He works for the company.
Yeah, they called us white supremacists.
They're liars. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're right.
If you only knew, listen, if you only knew how many times they trashed my name. You know.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've been. Trust me. Antifa's always after me.
Greatest thing. The way
hello.
that you have that stream, that's going to be historical. With that,
Exactly.
because
Oh
one day
yeah.
when all the evidence comes
Yep.
out, they're going to be like, here you go.
Exactly.
It's all on there.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll see y'all again.
Oh yeah.
Ready?
Yep. All right, guys, let's walk out of here. Ask him why he didn't report on the RSO. Yeah, exactly. That's what they were confronting him about. That's because it's mainstream media. That's why. They lie about everything. Guys, I got a really good picture of me and Mark Robertson. I'll put it up on my YouTube later.
Bunch of different chats going. What's your live stream
Nice meeting you guys. Check out my YouTube. Yeah, you too. Hey, there's a rooster. All right, guys, I appreciate you stopping by. Hit that like button before you leave. I put up that picture of me and Mark Robertson later. It's a very good picture. And
I told him in the chat that you took it, but I accidentally said selfish. So I had to
I love you guys. I appreciate y'all coming by. We got a lot of good new members. Tuesday, please join in Tuesday. We will be going to multiple polling places. Check out what's going on, talk to people, and love you guys, and I will see you probably Tuesday. All right, have a good night. God bless y'all, and God bless the great state of North Carolina. Love you guys. Bye.